Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CDL podcast, the pre-New York show. It's been a long time, and I've missed you all and missed talking about the events. It's been 2 weeks since our last actual, official podcast episode, since that last event ended. 2 weeks seems like forever ago. I hope that everybody here in America that celebrated for the 4th stayed safe. I know it's kind of a holiday where accidents can happen with a lot of alcohol being consumed and explosives. So I hope everyone safe, still has all their fingers and toes and everything. And I'm really excited to get into this one. It's like I said, it's been a long time since we've actually done a podcast. Not due to me not wanting to do them or anything, but simply because of the fact that we haven't had an event in a few weeks. So I did do a filler video and stuff, but quickly I'd like to thank you for the support on that new tier list filler video I did. If any of you haven't watched it, you can go check that out. I ranked all the Call of Duties from COD 4 on, since I didn't really play the other ones before that. But I ranked all the Call of Duties from COD 4 on in my own personal tier list, mostly factoring in how they played competitively, with a little bit of pubs and zombies and spec ops and extra modes factored in. And I'm sure my list is a little different than the general community consensus. So it'd be really cool if you guys didn't check that out, if you went and checked it out. It did very well in comparison to my expectations. I didn't really know what to expect from it. I was like, I figure you guys would be entertained by it. I really enjoyed talking about it, but I appreciate your guys' continued support. It kind of shows that you guys are awesome fans and you guys just are willing to watch any kind of Call of Duty content I put out there that I'm passionate about. So I really want to thank you guys for that. And be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, especially comment on this video and give your thoughts and feedback on what you think of my predictions. And what you think of this podcast overall. I am going to be doing that bracket builder thing, so it's not just going to be the Call of Duty team screen. Here in the beginning, when I talk about some of the rosters, it will be. But once we switch over to doing our predictions for this upcoming New York tournament, it'll be that bracket builder again, so you guys can kind of see how my bracket's going as I talk about the matchups. And like I said, be sure to leave a comment on what you think of the matchups and the roster news and stuff, because my favorite part of this by far is having conversations with you guys in the comments. And shout out to one of our commenters and subscribers in our last podcast, not the tier list, but our last podcast, Luke Reed. He gave me a sweet idea for a video. He wanted a video where I give predictions on which players we could see in the league if we get 4 new expansion teams, kind of like the OWL had. And that video may come soon, or with kind of champs and how busy we're going to be, it probably will be saved until the off season, right after champs, when I'm looking for videos to fill in from November or September August or September until November-ish when the new game comes out. Besides roster news videos, that'll give me another thing. So if there's 20 new players with the 4 new teams, I can kind of give predictions on which former pros or AMs may get those spots. So that might come soon. So thank you to him for commenting that. And before we get into predictions, we need to talk about some CDL news. A lot went down over the last 2 weeks-ish since that last podcast, like I mentioned. First and foremost, kind of some not as exciting news and some sadder news. Obviously, caster news broke. One is official, one isn't. Momo has been released from employment from Activision Blizzard, and there's no official news on what's going on with Benson, but we'll get into that after. Momo obviously had been accused, if you hadn't heard, of numerous counts of sexual harassment or abuse, and he was fired, which is obviously very justified. And as a caster only, he was really great as a caster, so he'll be missed in that regard, but obviously there's no room for this kind of disgusting behavior in the COD scene, and really anywhere, as a matter of fact. So the decision was definitely the correct one. It's unfortunate from losing him as a caster standpoint, but it's even more unfortunate for those victims that had to deal with his actions. Obviously, those actions haven't really been specifically talked about at the time of this recording, but obviously the shout-outs go out and all the prayers and everything for the victims. Obviously, they're going through a much rougher time than we are as COD fans of just losing one of our casters. Obviously, what they go through is way bigger than COD, and hope nothing but the best for them, and hopefully this gets solved. And it's very good to have somebody that has disgusting actions like that out of the scene. Obviously, we don't need somebody like that in this scene or really anywhere in general. So good for Activision for getting him out and exposing it, so we're not left wondering, and then we don't feel bad for him because this is justified, and his firing is very justified. And on top of this, it seems like Benson, on his own decision, has decided to leave the CDL. This isn't confirmed or anything, but at the time of this recording, he removed caster for Call of Duty League from his Twitter bio and has continuously talked about how happy he is to have this new offer or whatever he has been saying. My guess is something to do with like soccer. I know on like Fox Sports or something, he called, I don't know if it was an MLS game. I think it was, or I don't know what league it was. I believe it was MLS. Like maybe like the Columbus team. I don't really watch soccer very much, so sorry if that's completely off, but I think it was like the Columbus MLS team, if they have one. He did like a game with them or something for Fox Sports, and I think that was like kind of his lifelong dream as like a caster announcer was to do that kind of thing and work in soccer. So maybe he got that kind of offer, or maybe he was like offered to be like one of the first casters on Valorant or something. I'll be very sad to see him leave if it's like official that he's actually leaving, because he's been a caster for as long as I've been watching Call of Duty, and I think he's a very, very good caster. Some people think he's like overhyped, but I think he's very good, and I think he's one of the better ones in esports. But now with Momo and Benson being gone, Benson, we're really sad to see leave because it seems like it's on his own choice as of right now in the time of this recording. Momo obviously justified, he needs to go. Stuff like that is not acceptable at all and shouldn't be tolerated in any line of work or anywhere in the world. But maybe Miles and Chance, with these two being gone, will pair up and make a great duo. I think they would, because Miles is more of like the play-to-play. Momo was the analyst in their duo, and Miles was more of like the play-by-play, like the Maven. And Chance in the Benson duo was more of like the Merk, the analyst. So I think that those two could pair up, because personally I think Miles is like the new Courage in a way. Obviously he's sorry, he's not as popular as Courage and everything, but I think he's in that same boat where he jokes around a lot, and he's a very, very, very good play-by-play type caster. And then I think Chance is on that level. I still think Merk is the best, but I think Chance is right up there with him, and if it wasn't for Merk, Chance would be right at that top as an analyst. So I think those two could make a great pairing. But then maybe, just as pure speculation, haven't heard any actual like official rumors on this, but I'm thinking maybe we could see like Ton come back and Mr. X maybe come back. I don't really know what Ton is doing. I think he might be working on Gears, maybe. That could be completely wrong. Oh, maybe that's Machine or whatever that one guy was that was in COD. I can't remember. I think maybe we could see Ton back. Obviously, we have no idea. Maybe they'll just go with two caster pairs for the rest of the year. And then, I don't know, I have a feeling Mr. X might come back. He's talked about like wanting to get back into COD a little bit here and there, and I feel like he left the COD scene for the stability of the franchised Overwatch League, and now that COD's also franchised and Overwatch is going down a little bit in viewership, I believe. It's the other game that I really love. Maybe Mr. X will make his return to his roots and get into Call of Duty again, especially with an open caster spot or two, and he can really do the play-by-play or the analyst. My guess is maybe they will bring in Ton or somebody else to be like the play-by-play guy, and then Mr. X could maybe come back as an analyst. I'd love that personally. But that's all the caster news that went down. We have some recent roster news that's also happened. It appears that it is Draza and Hollows, I believe. I know it's Draza. I could be getting that Hollows one completely wrong. It might be somebody else, but I believe those are the two that have been picked up by Optic in place of Dashi and Chino. And once again, I'm recording this on the day of the roster lock, so it actually isn't like official that this has happened. They haven't announced it. But apparently those two have been picked up in place of Dashi and Chino. I know Draza, I might be getting the Hollows name wrong. I know they were talking about Rex, but I believe people said Rex wasn't the guy that got picked up, and people were really surprised because they thought Rex was the best between Draza, Hollows, and Rex. But Draza and Hollows, it seems like, have been picked up by Optic, with Dashi and Chino going to the bench. I don't know much about either of them other than the fact that they were on UIU, who consistently has been placing like towards the top of the Challengers tournaments. I kind of understand the pickup though, because I guess Optic, after their last tournament and stuff, they're kind of chalked. I know Dashi from the beginning of the year did not want to play on Optic at all with those players, maybe besides like Tej, but he wanted to play with Scump, I think, again, and on the Huntsmen and be with Hector, but he kind of got trapped in the Optic contract or however it went down. But I don't know much about either of these two new players. I understand it, like I said, because of the vibes, and they have been playing super well, and once again, they've been playing super well online. And we'll get into that a little bit, but online is what we're going to have for the rest of the year. So you want to pick up players that are good online, and I've heard they like live on opposite ends of the country or something too, so Optic can really help with the connection advantage maybe with that. But it's pretty shocking to me that Dashi is benched because, I mean, he's been one of the best players in the world since he came on to the pro. I mean, he played at Champs and IW and stuff and played like late in that year, but since he like full-time came onto the scene after turning 18 in World War II, he's been like consistently one of the top players, so it's shocking to see him benched. Chino, unfortunately for him, it's not as shocking to see him benched. I was a little shocked after the meta change to maybe 2 ARs that he was benched, but I feel like Chino was put in a tough spot, and he actually did pretty well with it. He got into like a 2nd place finish in his first event and then like a 4th place, and they were like a super good team consistently for a little bit there, finishing in like 2nd and a lot of semifinals and stuff. And I feel like Chino did all that he could, playing a role that he's not used to. And I know he was pretty upset on Twitter, so I feel for him. I really hope the best for Chino. I don't think he's going to be eligible to play on a Challengers team either, which really sucks for him. But I really hope the best for him. I think he definitely deserves a starting spot, and I hope in one of the expansion teams or one of these current teams he gets one next year. This is also being recorded roster lock day, like I said, but it appears as of now that Gunless and Dashy are not on teams, and they're just done for the year, which is unbelievable to me because you can argue for most of the year Gunless was the best player in World War II, and then you can also argue that Dashy was up there towards the top. He was like the top in every stat in World War II, KD and everything, and kills and stuff. And then you can also say for a lot of IW, Gunless was the best player. And then into BO4 for a little bit there when LG actually won an event, you could argue Gunless was the best player. And throughout the whole year, especially the first event, Dashy was the best player. And you could argue that Dashy was the best player throughout the whole year. So, I mean, between these two players, they've, for a majority of the year, been the best player in the game. IW, World War II, BO4, not as much this year, but they've been the best player in the game at certain points for the last like 3 CODs. So it's shocking to see, unless something hasn't been reported. CDL Intel still says he's heard nothing about Gunless or Dashy. And it is roster lock day, so if they're going to be on a roster, I believe it has to be today. I don't think there's any other like little windows. But it's unbelievable that those 2 players who have been the best in the game for a lot of their career, or have been up there at the top, are not going to play at Champs. It's shocking to me. And then another small note, the Toronto roster for like the 85th, 1000th time, whatever, has made another change. It seems like Classic is in for medals, I believe it is. I think the roster is currently, if it stands, Methods, Kleenex, Classic, Bance, and Cammy. That is not official or anything, but I believe that's the roster. Classic in for medals. So once again, that's Methods, Kleenex, Classic, Bance, and Cammy. Don't have a ton of thoughts on this. Actually, I do think this is maybe the best roster they could make. But the only question I do have is, we'll talk about the meta in a second, but it seems like it's a 2 AR shift. I don't know who plays the 2nd AR on that, because everything we've seen from Kleenex since BO4 Champs, he's been purely a sub, fast-paced player. Classic's been like a sub type of player his whole career, mostly, with a little bit of flex in there. Bance has been a sub his whole career, and I don't really know too much about Cammy, but I think he's been a sub. So my guess for this team would be Classic would be the 2nd AR, because I remember I think a little bit in BO3, maybe when he was with like Octane and Looney and Slacked, I think he pulled out the 2nd AR sometimes, but I have no idea. So maybe Classic will be, I would guess it'd be Classic or Cammy. Because I know Classic could use an AR, and I know Cammy, I don't know much about Cammy, but I think he could maybe use an AR, and I know Kleenex and Bance are always subs, so they won't be the flex type players. But we'll see what happens. It seems like a time that maybe Brack could have come in instead of like Bance or something, then you could have Classic, Kleenex, and Cammy on the subs, and then Brack be your 2nd AR, because he's actually like a true AR type player. But we'll see what happens with that roster. I actually do like that. I think Kleenex is a really good player and deserves to start. So we'll see what happens, because I think Classic also, I can maybe see Bance getting benched, because he hasn't been the same since like IW, BO3, but we'll see what happens to that roster. Then also the game is undergoing huge meta changes, like I briefly mentioned a few seconds ago. A 2nd AR is being used on a lot of maps now. I think it's just a 2nd M4. I thought I did see some teams are maybe trying out the Graw a little bit, but I believe for now it's just 2 M4s. Kind of like a main M4 and then more of like a support slang type of one that's going to play a little more fast-paced, I believe. And then also the MP7, MP5 again, Uzi, and AUG are all being messed around with. The GAs are messing everything up. Apparently the knife was GA'd for a little bit, but then CDL Intel says it was never GA'd. And then the MP5 just got worse, I guess, through this patch. And the MP7 is still pretty good. And then the Uzi had like the 10mm mags, like the same thing that the MP5 had, but apparently it made it too OP, so those are GA'd, and then the Uzi sucks. And now I've seen some clips today of like Priesta destroying God RX and like 2 bullets somehow with the AUG. So now maybe the AUG is going to get GA'd and it's too good or something. So we honestly have no idea what the meta is going to be. If I had to guess, I think we'll see some MP7s and AUGs, maybe a little bit of Uzis, maybe some more MP5s still, even with the nerf this weekend. But honestly, I'm kind of excited to see where we go, because I have always loved the metas. Like in IW, we had like an NV4, 2 K bars, and like an ERAD, or 2 ERADs, a K bar, and NV4, kind of like a main AR type gun, then like a middle range AR, and then some subs. And my favorite meta really ever is like last year, like the 1 ICR, it's like a long range main AR, then 2 Maddoxes for the mid range, and 2 SOGs. I kind of like when there's like a main AR clear gun, a middle ground gun, and then a Pierce sub. To me, that's my favorite meta, especially since it's gone to 5v5. So I kind of hope that we see something like that, maybe with like the M4 or 2 being like your main ARs, and then maybe like an MP5 player or 2 as like the mid-range, and then maybe people are using like an Uzi or AUG or MP7 as like the main sub. Some kind of like split where it seems like there's actually like a little bit of balance. That'd be kind of cool. And then the last little bit of news, we've had a lot here, is that Champs was announced to be online. My thoughts on this are, it really sucks, but I understand. Obviously, if we had our choice, every event would be on LAN, obviously, and Champs would obviously be on LAN. It provides for the most consistent results, I think. It provides for the most fair playing field, as you're not dealing with. I mean, if somebody does have 100 ping and somebody has 10 ping to a server, it is a serious advantage for that person that has the much lower ping. So it's super unfortunate, but obviously given the current state of the world and the health risk it could pose to players or talent or production team or camera crews or anybody who would be in attendance, obviously there wouldn't be fans if they decided to do it. But anybody who's in attendance, from players to all those staff members I mentioned, if any of them have health risks and get super sick, obviously then it wasn't worth it, because it's not worth it to have it on LAN if a bunch of people are going to get sick and possibly have their lives threatened, or bring it home to family members and spread the pandemic some more. That seems to be never ending. So obviously it really sucks that Champs is online. We all wanted it to be on LAN, including the players. It also makes it harder to stop cheating if cheating is truly happening while we've been online here. So yeah, Champs is online. It's super unfortunate, but we got to deal with what we have. I saw like Slasher saying it should be postponed, which on the surface sounds like a good idea, but if Champs is already scheduled for August and you postpone it, and then in September things haven't gotten any better, then it's like, okay, what are we going to do? Wait till October? And then if things haven't gotten any better, the new COD's out. And then if the new COD's out, they're not going back to the old game to play Champs. And then there'd be like 2 months of no content. People would lose interest. I don't see the way that the logistics work for a postponed Champs, although I do understand where he's coming from. And I understand his frustration completely, because I'd be super frustrated if I had bad connection like he seems to have, and had to play online. And I also understand the complete reason why he wants it on LAN, so it's super unfortunate, but I just can't see the logistics working behind postponing it, because you may never actually get to do it on LAN, and then the game cycle would be over and nobody would watch it or be interested in it. So that's going to do it for the little quick, actually not really quick, the long roster news and stuff we had before this. And now we're going to get into the predictions. I got to get all the setup ready for the bracket and everything, so I'll be back in a couple minutes to do the predictions with you guys. All right, we are back here with the bracket. I hope everything is synced up. I think it is. We should be good to go. I think everything's synced up. Hopefully I don't have to end up recording this twice. I almost screwed up the first time I did this in the last video. So I think everything's all synced up. We got the bracket up here. You see the New York Subliners bracket builder. In the beginning of the year, if you guys have been OG fans, I appreciate it. You saw my predictions from when I started this. I didn't start the first event. I did it like a couple events after. And not going to lie, my predictions were pretty spot on. I didn't do like the actual bracket builder, but if you go and listen, like every time I had like 3 out of 4 or 4 out of 4 of the teams right in the semifinal, and I had like the winner right almost every time and stuff. But recently, the last few events, I haven't been as successful. Obviously, in the Paris event, I went bold prediction, Optic as the winner, and I think they won like 2 maps, so that was a horrible prediction. Hoping to do better this time. I don't think I have as many like bold predictions for this one, but we'll get right into it right away here. The groups are in this top group A. We got Paris, Toronto, Atlanta, LA Gorillas, and then in this bottom group here, we've got Royal Ravens, Huntsmen, Subliners, and Rocker. So clearly that bottom group, that group B with the Huntsmen, is much better. You've got 4 teams that are Rocker have been to a final, Huntsmen have won 2 home series, London have been to a final, New York has been to a couple semifinals, and then up here at the top we've got Toronto's been to a semifinal, Paris has maybe been to like a semifinal or 2 on LAN, Faze has obviously been to every final they've attended, and Gorillas have been to like one semifinal, so the top bracket's a lot weaker. We'll start up there because to me it's a little more straightforward in the beginning at least. I think Ultra come out strong in their new roster, if it actually is that Cammy, Kleenex, Bance, Classic, Methods roster. I have a lot of faith in that roster. I think Methods, especially after listening to that recent Codcast, Nameless Pac-Man and Methods, I still think Methods might be my favorite pro player, especially when it comes to personality. I don't play anything like him. Usually when I play with my squad, I'm more of like a kind of like a flex and stuff. And obviously I consume a lot more COD than a lot of players that I play with. We don't play like serious challengers or anything. We play like mostly just rank play and stuff for fun. I'm kind of like an IGL and more of like a flex or like a faster paced sub. I don't play anything like Methods, but for some reason, I don't know, he's just funny. Love his personality and love him as a player. Kind of why I might have a little Toronto bias. So I'm picking Toronto in this one, not only because of that little bias I have, but because, I mean, let's face it, neither of these teams are great. But to me, Toronto has shown a lot of flashes. They've been one round away from a final, a round 11, game 5 against Faze. They took Huntsmen to game 5, round 11 on land. They've played mostly all the top teams they play. They usually play them tough. And even if they play bottom teams, they always seem to get in like 5-game series. To me, they're a much better team than Paris, and I think they're going to come out hot and actually 3-0 Paris here. And then in this next matchup, we have Faze Gorillas. This is actually a tougher matchup than you'd think. I mean, if this would have been before the Paris event, you would have thought this is the easiest group Faze could ever have because Ultra was on a complete slide with the whole Classic situation. Paris was on, or has been on a complete slide forever and are probably the worst team in the league. And then Gorillas had been on a slide the entire year. They hadn't had any success. But after that last event, Gorillas looked a lot better and were able to make it to a semifinal, and Toronto, I think, has made good roster changes, so this group becomes a little harder. But here, I still think Faze gets the win. Faze seems to always come out slow, though, so I'm going to combine Gorillas and give. I'm going to give the Gorillas 2 maps in this one. I think Faze comes out slow. I think maybe Faze wins the hard point, then drops the search, because I think the Gorillas are the best search team in the league. And then I think Gorillas might steal the dom and make it 2-1, and then Faze might rattle off 2 straight. But I'd love to see 2 searches between these 2 teams because, in my opinion, they're probably the 2 best search teams in the league. I think Toronto's actually up there too. But if not, they're the 2 best. I think that they're both like top 3, top 4 search teams. So I'd love to see 2 searches between them just to see how that plays out. But I think that Faze wins a close one, 3-2 there. And then in this knockout match, used to be a bottom of the 11 matchup of the 11 and 12 teams. But here I think the Gorillas are going to take it. Out of respect, I'm just going to give Paris a map. I think maybe here they steal like a search or like a dom or something. I can't really see them taking a hard point, but maybe they will. But I think Gorillas are going to beat them 3-1. I just can never predict Paris to ever win a match until they prove me wrong, because since like LAN, they really haven't won any. So until Paris really proves me wrong and shows online that they can win and that they're actually on the level of some of these teams, I have to unfortunately predict them to keep losing. I have nothing against any of those players of that team. I actually love Paris, the city. It's like my favorite place I've ever been, but just I can't predict them to win a match, especially when I'm pretty high on the Gorillas. Actually, I think that they're trending upwards, and I think that they're going to continue to get better, and they're such a strong search team. Then this top match, you'd think it'd be an easy pick for Faze, which I'm definitely going to pick. I think I'm going to take them 3-2 as well, though Faze seems to be such a slow starting team, and I think that their slow starts may continue here at this event. And I do think the Ultra, to me, I think the Ultra are in the conversation for like a top 8 team, and I think they are actually kind of my dark horse. They're at 10 right now in the standings, but I think they're kind of my dark horse to maybe find their way into the top 8 and start in winners. And I think, they might be a team that would be better on land, but I think with everything going down for champs, and if this roster that's rumored actually is the roster and sticks, which I think it has to because of roster lock, I could see them finding their way into the top 8 and then maybe making a run to like top 4 and surprising some people. I know a commenter in a couple videos back, I can't remember who it was, unfortunately, I'm sorry, but they said that Toronto is kind of their dark horse pick for champs, and I was like, I can't really see that. And I still don't think, I'm not saying I think that Toronto is going to be like a dark horse pick for champs, but to me they are kind of like a dark horse team that could sneak their way into the top 6 or top 4 that you wouldn't expect at all. You'd expect them to be like a top 8 team or lower, but they are a team that to me could sneak into top 6 and top 4. And for a team that's been in the bottom 3 all year, if they were able to sneak a top 6 or top 4 and get in that prize money, that'd be pretty good for them. But I think they lose here 3-2. And then another interesting matchup, it's 2 teams that are towards the bottom half of the standings, but I have a lot of faith in and think could make late season runs. I really want to pick Toronto. I don't know who to pick here because To me, it seems like the safer pick as of their recent forms is the LA Gorillas, because they looked super, super good in the last tournament and they could have easily made the final. I was planning on picking Gorillas in this matchup when I first kind of looked at the bracket and saw how it would play out. And I think I'm going to... I know that Gorillas are going to be the more common pick here. And I think I want to actually pick Toronto here. I'm going to go bold. I always go bold and it always screws me up. But it's going to be 3-2 because I honestly, if I'm thinking with my head, I think that Gorillas are going to win. But with my heart, I'm picking Toronto. Mostly because I want Toronto to make it out, because I want Toronto to get into the top 8, because I think they're going to be a more entertaining team than like if Minnesota stays in or like some other teams maybe stay in there. So I'm picking Toronto here. I have zero confidence in this pick. I could easily see LAG winning this, and honestly going into before this recording, I was planning on picking LA Gorillas, but for some reason when the matchup was in front of me and I was just talking my lungs out here on the mic, I actually kind of think and want Ultra to win. So I have them winning 3-2. Obviously, like I said, no confidence in this pick at all. I could easily, to me, this is a toss-up matchup. I think they're pretty evenly matched teams. Gorillas have looked better as of recent, but I feel like the talent edge might go to Ultra a little bit. I think Methods is a better AR than Blast, although it is online. Blast is pretty good online. And then I think just Classic and Bance, the experience there with the subs, could be deadly. And then I think Kleenex could be a super fast-paced player that could really help them out on the submachine gun. He only had one event and he looked pretty good. So I'm going to pick Toronto here. I think Gorillas are probably the smarter pick, but we always have to go a little bold. We can't just do like the stock picks every time in these brackets, or it wouldn't be any fun to watch or really talk about. And then we get into the interesting bracket, and I can already see what's happening in this bracket. If you guys are listeners consistently of this podcast, you know where I'm going with this. I'm looking here at this bracket, and I see, I mean, if this was on LAN, I wouldn't even know who to pick because Rocker would also be in there, but Rocker are clearly the weak team to me in this, and you guys know every time I pick London to like win a match and then get knocked out, and it looks like they might get the same thing again. They have been absolutely shafted with their matchups this year. Chicago seems to start slow, but to me, Chicago lost in groups in the last event for the first time in CDL history, and I don't think they're going to do it again, although historically, like the Scump and formal teams do start slow on Fridays, and they're slow starting teams, but I don't think they do it here. I do think, however, it is another 3-2 matchup, like I've predicted a lot of so far. I think the Huntsmen win this one, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if the Royal Ravens are able to take this. You guys know how much I like the Royal Ravens. They're one of my favorite teams. I'd say they're up there. And I really like the players in the team, but unfortunately, for like it seems like the 10th tournament in a row, they get matched up with either the Huntsmen, Dallas, or Faze in the first round. They can't catch a break. I saw like 75% of their losses are to those three teams, like the top three, which is just insane to me. And we have really like Faze and Huntsman, two of the top 4 teams here this weekend, but we have no Dallas and I'm blanking out of Florida here. Probably 2 of the other top 4 teams. You could argue maybe 1 and 2. So you'd think maybe Royal Ravens finally have a chance, and then they get slotted against Minnesota, New York, and Chicago, so they have an impossible group. But I think they lose 3-2 here. I wouldn't be shocked if they win, and to be honest, I wouldn't be shocked if they come out of this group, but for now, I don't think I'm going to. We'll see when we get towards the bottom here. Here, it's pretty self-explanatory. I think New York wins this one versus Minnesota. I think Minnesota gets a map, though. Once again, I don't know what's going on with Alex. I think he's back in, but if he's not, Exceed just isn't near the level of player Alex is. Maybe he would be if he had the whole year to practice, but in this current game and everything, Exceed is nowhere near the level that Alex is, and we don't know if Alex is 100% healthy or feels comfortable with everything that's going on with like his, I believe it's his right thumb, which is obviously pretty crucial as a COD player. It's what you aim with. So I think New York takes this one. Unfortunate, because as you guys know, I do like Minnesota, but it seems like they're crumbling to me here. With the league being online, it just seems like they're not as good of a team online, so unfortunate for them, but I think they do lose this one. And then down here in the bottom, we have a knockout round 1 matchup of Group B. You guys know where I'm going to go with this. I think London takes it. I think Minnesota gets another map here. I could see it going 5, and I could maybe see Minnesota pulling this out. But as you guys know, I've always been kind of a London fan. I really have a lot of faith in their team, but I do think that London takes out Minnesota here and unfortunately ends Minnesota's run at the CDL New York event. Then up here in the winner section, we have New York versus the Huntsmen. it just feels weird to pick the Huntsmen to win 2 series in a row, which I don't know why. When I see Faze, it's easy for me to pick them twice. When I see Florida, it's easy. And when I see Dallas, it's easy. But for some reason with Huntsmen, with how slow they start and their struggles and everything, I mean, they did win an event after picking up Prestinni, but they didn't have to play any of the top teams. And then the second they had to, they didn't even end up playing Faze. They lost to the Gorillas to get knocked out. But I do think they're going to win this one. Shocker, it's going to be another 3-2 because all the teams are so evenly matched. I think the Huntsmen get out. I think even if they lose this, they end up getting out and beating London or who's ever going to be down there. But here I have them winning 3-2 in New York's home event. I could easily see New York beating them because Zuma attached teams, especially like in the AW days, always seem to have their way with the Scump, Hecz, formal type teams. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if New York's able to win this, but I'm going to pick Chicago, mostly because I kind of want to set up, see if we could have like a chance at a Faze Huntsman final. We know we'll never probably get it because those two teams, for some reason, are incapable of playing each other. But yeah, I'm going to pick Huntsman to win this one. Don't feel that confident that I could easily see New York winning that, but at the same time, New York seems to always get themselves to like this stage, like the semifinal, and somehow find a way to blow it. But then in this knockout round 2 match, we've got New York and London. I'm going to go New York here in a shocker, another 3-2. But I don't feel that confident in this one. Once again, this whole bottom section of the bracket is just like a huge question mark for me. London, obviously, I feel really confident in their team. I feel like they could have maybe used a change, though. Obviously, Jerd wasn't as good in this game, but I feel like Jerd with Dylan, those two could play such a fast-paced play style together. And then you could have Scraps on like a MP5 or like whatever the middle ground gun is in this new meta, and then Zero is used to playing an AR, so he could be kind of like your flex. And then Wuskin could stay on your main AR. I feel like if they had Jerd in this roster instead of Shawnee, it would just fit so perfect for me. I just think Shawnee is just a little bit of a letdown. He's still a good player, but I feel like this team is missing a little bit of slaying to stick. Like Zero's a decent slayer, Scraps is a very good slayer, Wuskin in this game has been a very good slayer, and Dylan historically, not really historically, but in BO4 was. I just feel like they're missing, like with Shawnee, I feel like a lot of teams, like the top teams, have 5 slayers, and I feel like Shawnee is just lacking that department a little bit where Jerd could pick it up. Obviously, Jerd wasn't that good at this game, but I think London's just missing a little something to put them over the hump. Could easily see them winning this, though. To me, London and New York are like right at the same point in the power rankings. They're in like that same section. So I do think New York wins this, but I think it gets very close, and I think London could easily win it. And then moving on here to our semifinals, we have Faze, New York, Huntsmen, and then Ultra. One of these things is not like the other. But I mean, between Ultra, Paris, and LA Gorillas, one of them has to come out. So it's going to be a team we wouldn't expect. I figure Faze Huntsman will definitely be coming out. And then either Subliners or London, or if Huntsman fall apart again this weekend, we'll see London, New York, Faze. So either way, we'll see like 3 of like the top 6 teams in this semifinals. And then we'll see kind of a newcomer team, Toronto, Gorillas, or maybe somehow Paris. But in this one, we have Toronto coming out. So in this top matchup, we've got probably the better matchup of the semifinal. We have Faze versus New York. I think Faze is finally going to find their footing in this one and not have a 5-game series. I think they're going to take out New York. I tried to give New York a negative point there on accident. I think they're going to take out New York 3-1. I do think New York has a chance in this matchup, but we've still yet to see Faze not make a final, I believe, in all the events they've played in. I don't think that's going to change here. So I do think that Faze is going to win this one. New York, a great effort from them, but once again, they fall short in the semifinals. But, I mean, if New York is consistently getting 20 points every tournament, they're going to find themselves in the top 8. And really, at this point, New York's not going to climb their way up to, like, the number 1 or 2 spot or whatever. So for them, it's just clawing your way and staying in that top 8, because the top 8 is crucial. I mean, if you finish 8th, you may be playing the 3 seed and like the best team that's doesn't have a bye or whatever, or whoever they play. But guess what? At least you're not in losers. If you're in 9, you start in losers and you have to be flawless. You can lose maps, but you can't lose a series. So starting in the top 8 is a huge advantage to be able to have like if you have a slow start and you lose that first series, you could still make a run to like top 6 and make some money. But if you are like the 9th team, like I think like Surge are there right now or something, and you just start slow, come out just a little lackluster in your first match, your champs is done in 1 series. So New York puts up a valiant effort here, but I think Faze takes it 3-1. And then down here in the bottom matchup, we've got Huntsman Ultra, kind of an unexpected matchup, I think, for most of you. This one, I think, is the one that goes 3-2. I think Huntsman win it. to be honest, they probably won't, because I think we're just destined to never get the Faze versus Huntsmen matchup this entire year until maybe like the Champs Final or something. I don't know. These teams have somehow avoided each other the whole entire year. They've never played yet in a series or anything. So I do think that Huntsmen take this one 3-2 over Ultra. I think Ultra puts up a valiant effort. And to be honest with you, I don't feel that confident in this pick. If it goes 5 games, I do think Huntsmen win it, and I think they could easily win it 3-1 or 3-0. But if it does go 5, I'm going to be feeling real nervous. Obviously, I did pick them to win in 5. But if it does go 5, I'm going to be a lot more nervous than if they're like up 2-0, because Ultra are a very good search team, and you could even argue they're a better search team than Huntsmen from what we've seen with Prestinni. They had a good event in search and then really struggled in it. So if it does go game 5, I am going to feel a little nervous about this pick, because I could very, very easily see Toronto clutching up and winning a game 5. But I feel like if it does get to game 5 with a chance at a final on the line, players like Scump, Formal, Arcitys, Envoy, Prestinni, between all that experience and 4 different world champs they have on that team, and then Envoy obviously is a very good player. I feel like somebody is going to step up and just kind of take over a game 5 and be clutch for them and get them back to a final, so they can prove this team is something to fear and something to look out for going into champs. So I think they win at 3-2, and we finally get the Faze Huntsman matchup we've all been waiting for. And then in this one, I want to go 3-2 because I think it could be a very good series, but I do think Faze outmatches them. I'm going to take Faze. I want to take Huntsman for the storylines of like they've never played. Everybody would pick Faze. But I don't think I can. I think I'm going to give the Huntsmen a map in the final. I know it's weird to not give them 2 maps in the final, and whoever's in the final, I'm hoping for 5 maps, because if they're in the final, I want a nice long final. I don't want it to be a quick sweep like the last series final, Florida like 3-0 Faze or whatever, and they absolutely just swept them out of the building. I don't want to see that. I want to see a good final. I hope it's 3-2, but I think honestly, I think the Huntsmen might come out hot and win the first hardpoint and then lose search, dom, hardpoint. Just 3 straight. But I wouldn't be completely surprised if Huntsmen win this, because obviously a team with Scump and Formal and those players we just talked about, they can beat any team at any time. They have great talent and experience. But I do think FaZe is the most talented team in the game. I think that talent shines through here. Without the 2 teams that really seem to compete very well with them, Dallas and Florida here, I think FaZe is definitely the best team, and I think they will win it here. So I think that is going to do it for this podcast. We got into a lot of like the news between like the talent side and the players and rosters and everything. Talked about champs being online. Went over my bracket that you see here in front of you. And that's a good pre-show, I think. I hope you guys all enjoyed this one. It seems like we're gonna have a grind coming up here. I believe there's an event this weekend. And then there is also an event the weekend after, I think. I think we have like 2 or 3 straight weekends of events or something. So it's going to be like a Monday reaction episode, then a Tuesday prediction or something, if that is the case, if we have a couple back-to-back. So it's going to be a grind of podcasts. It's going to be a lot of recording to do. And I'm pretty busy. I think I work this weekend, and the next weekend I might be at a cabin with some of my family and stuff. So there's a lot of work to do. Pretty busy, but I'm definitely gonna get all the podcasts out and everything. There's nothing to worry about there. I love doing it, so it's gonna happen either way. I'm not gonna let it not happen. But it's gonna be a grind coming up here. I hope you guys all enjoy watching this weekend. Obviously, all of us are gonna be watching. If we're watching this podcast, we're probably watching. If we're not busy, I hope you guys enjoy watching. I hope we get a good tournament. I hope we don't get some kind of dud. Although recently, I feel like they've been getting better and better. So thank you guys for watching this video and for the support. Be sure to drop a like, subscribe, and also the most important thing for me, comment. I think also, obviously I love to have those conversations with you in the comments, and we've been getting more and more, which makes the videos even more enjoyable for me to make when I see that I'm impacting you guys and providing you with content, and you feel you have enough to comment. So comment who you think is going to win, if you have any bold predictions or anything about like the rosters news and anything like that, or news around the CDL. And also be sure to subscribe. I think like in our analytics, we saw like of all the views we've been getting recently, which have actually been going up a pretty good amount. I'm really happy with that and really want to thank you guys for that. But like 80% of the people or something that watch the videos consistently aren't subscribed. So if you're consistently tuning in, watching the videos, subscribe, please. I'd appreciate it. Helps the video get out. Helps us get a bigger community, more people to talk with. I believe somebody did mention creating a Discord. And I mean, if our community keeps getting bigger, we could probably create like a CDL podcast Discord where maybe you guys could like type questions in like a chat or something that I could answer on like post shows if you have questions about the event, or like things like maybe I thought this, what did you think of it? We could maybe ask some questions in like a Discord, or you could even have like voice channels in there where like we could get other members of the community together and we could talk about COD. Maybe none of your like IRL friends really watch COD too much and you want more people to talk about it. Maybe we could create like a little bit of a smaller community that's not so obviously, like things like the Codcast are way bigger than what I do here, so the community might be so big that it's harder to get, but we have a little smaller community, so maybe we can get like chat rooms going and stuff. So we maybe could look into that if enough people are interested. I don't really know how to get that started. Maybe I'd reach out to somebody, one of you guys, for help. But yeah, like I said, thank you guys so much for watching this. Have fun watching this weekend. Hope you guys all stayed safe this past holiday weekend here in America. That's going to do it for this one. I will see you after this weekend for the reaction to the New York home series. Thanks for watching.